The Epic of Atrahasis, aka Noah's Flood. The Epic of Atrahasis is the fullest Mesopotamian account of the Great Flood, with Atrahasis in the role of Noah. It was written in the 17th century BC. The text is known from several versions. Two were written by Assyrian scribes, one in the Assyrian, one in the Babylonian dialect. A third one, on 3 tablets, was written during the reign of King Ammi-Sadarka of Babylonia, 1647 to 1626 BC. Parts are quoted in Tablet 11 of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Other influences are in the Babylonian history by Berossus. These texts can be used to reconstruct the lost parts of the Epic of Atrahasis, while the overall structure is known from the Bible. A quick summary before the reading. The conditions immediately after the creation. The lower gods have to work very hard and start to seriously complain. There is a revolt of the lower gods, the Igigi. Negotiations with the great gods, the Anunnaki Council of 12. Proposal to create humans to relieve the lower gods from their labor. Creation of the man ensues. Man's noisy behavior is a new complaint from the gods. The supreme god, Enlil's decision to extinguish humanity through a great flood is next. Atrahasis is warned in a dream. Enki explains the dream to Atrahasis and betrays the Anunnaki plan. Construction of the Ark begins. Boarding the Ark was difficult. Departure finally happens. The great flood is unprecedented. The gods are hungry because no farmers are left to bring food, and they decide to spare Atrahasis, even though he is considered a rebel. Regulations to cut down the noise, typically through celibacy, only if the priests swear allegiance to the Council of Nibiru. The following translation is adapted from the one by Ryan Moorhan, his grandfather George Moorhan, and originates from the Moorhan collection in Liechtenstein, and is now known to be where Sitchin got his material from. When the gods, instead of man, did the work, they bore the loads. The gods' load was too great, the work too hard, the trouble too much. The great Anunnaki made the Igigi to carry the workload sevenfold. Anu, their father, was king, their counselor warrior Enlil, their chamberlain was Ninurta, their canal controller Ennugi. They took the box of lots, cast the lots. The gods made the division. Anu went up to the sky, and Enlil took the earth for his people. The bolt which bars the sea was assigned to far-sighted Enki. When Anu had gone up to the sky, and the gods of the Apsu had gone below, the Anunnaki of the sky made the Igigi bear the workload. The gods had to dig out canals, had to clear channels, the lifelines of the land. The gods dug out the Tigris River, and then dug out the Euphrates. In the deep, they set up the Apsu of the land. Inside it, raised its top, of all the mountains. They were counting the years of loads, the great marsh. They were counting the years of loads. For 3,600 years, they bore the excess, hard work night and day. They groaned and blamed each other, grumbled over the masses of excavated soil. They longed for Nibiru. Let us confront our chamberlain and get him to relieve us of our hard work. Come, let us carry the Lord, the counselor of the gods, the warrior from his dwelling. Then they made his voice heard and spoke to the gods, his brothers. Come, let us carry the counselor of the gods, the warrior from his dwelling. Come, let us carry Enlil, the counselor of the gods, the warrior from his dwelling. Now cry battle, let us mix fight with battle. The gods listened to his speech. They set fire to their tools, put aside their spades for fire, their loads for the fire god. They flared up. When they reached the gate of warrior Enlil's dwelling, it was night, the middle watch. The house was surrounded. The god had not realized. When they reached the gate of warrior Enlil's dwelling, it was night, the middle watch. Ekur was surrounded. Enlil had not realized. Yet Kalkal was attentive and had it closed. He held the lock and watched the gate. Kalkal roused Nusku, the Nibirian warrior. They listened to the noise of the Igigi. Then Nusku roused his master, made him get out of bed. My lord, your house is surrounded. A rabble is running around your door. Enlil, your house is surrounded. You are in trouble. A rabble is running around your door. Enlil had weapons brought to his dwelling. Enlil made his voice heard and spoke to the vizier. "Nusku, Nusku, bar your door. Take up your weapons and stand in front of me." Nusku barred his door, took up his weapons and stood in front of Enlil. Nusku made his voice heard and spoke to the warrior. "Enlil, O my lord, your face is sallow as tamarisk. Why do you fear your own sons? O Enlil, your face is sallow as tamarisk. Why do you fear your own sons? Send for Anu to be brought down to you. Has Enki fetched into your presence?" He sent for Anu to be brought down to him. Enki was fetched into his presence. Anu, king of the sky, was present. Enki, king of the Apsu, attended. The great Anunnaki were present. Enlil got up, and the case was put. Enlil made his voice heard and spoke to the great gods. "Is it against me that they have risen? Shall I do battle?" Enlil didn't get the Agigi. "What did I see with my own eyes? A rabble was running around my door." Anu made his voice heard and spoke to the warrior Enlil. "Let Nusku go out, give them some Nibiru wrath, and find out the word of the Agigi who has surrounded your door. A command, too." Enlil made his voice heard and spoke to the vizier Nusku. "Nusku, open your door, take up your weapons and stand before me. In the assembly of all the gods, bow, then stand and tell them, your father Anu, your counselor, warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Ninurta, and your canal controller Enuggi, have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble, who is in charge of the fighting, who declared war, who ran to the door of Enlil." Nusku opened his door, took up his weapons, went before Enlil. In the assembly of all the gods, the great Anunnaki council of 12, he bowed, then stood and told the message. "Your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Ninurta, and your canal controller Enuggi, have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble, who is in charge of the fighting, who declared war, who ran to the door of Enlil. Enlil, every single one of us declared war. We have put a stop to the digging. If you want your gold, you can dig it yourself. The load is excessive. It is killing us. Our work is too hard, the trouble too much. So every single one of us gods has agreed to complain to Enlil." Nusku took his weapons, went and returned to Enlil. "My lord, you sent me to—" "I went," I explained, saying, "every single one of us gods declared war. We have put a stop to the digging. The load is excessive. It is killing us. Our work is too hard, the trouble too much. So every single one of us gods has agreed to complain to Enlil." Enlil listened to that speech. His tears flowed. Enlil spoke guardedly, addressed the warrior Anu, "Noble one, take a decree. With you to the sky, show your strength. While the Anunnaki are sitting before you, call up one god and let them cast him for destruction." Anu made his voice heard and spoke to the gods, his brothers. "What are we complaining about? Their work was indeed too hard. Their trouble was too much. Every day the earth resounded. The warning signal was loud enough. We kept hearing the noise, doing tasks. While the Anunnaki are sitting before you, and while Belet Ili, the womb goddess, is present, call up one and cast him for destruction." Anu made his voice heard and spoke to Nusku. "Nusku, open your door, take up your weapons, bow in the assembly of the great gods, then stand and tell them, your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, your chamberlain Ninurta, and your canal controller Enuggi, have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble, who will be in charge of the battle, which god started the war. A rabble was running around my door. When Nusku heard this, he took up his weapons, bowed in the assembly of the great gods, then stood and told them, your father Anu, your counselor warrior Enlil, have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rabble, who is in charge of the fighting, which god started the war. A rabble was running around Enlil's door. Enki made his voice heard and spoke to the gods, his brothers. Why are we blaming them? Their work was too hard and their trouble was too much. Every day the earth resounded. The warning signal was loud enough. We kept hearing the noise. There is guilt on our hands. Belet Ili, the womb goddess, is present. Let her create a mortal man so that he may bear the yoke. Just try and keep Enlil from laughing at him so that he may bear the yoke, the work of Enlil. Let man bear the load of the gods. Belet Ili, the womb goddess, is present. Let the womb goddess create offspring, and let them bear the load of the gods. They called up the goddess and asked, the midwife of the gods, wise Mami, you are the womb goddess to be the creator of mankind. Create a mortal, that he may bear the yoke. Let him bear the yoke, the work of Enlil. Let him bear the load of the gods. Nintu made her voice heard, and spoke to the great gods. On the 1st, 7th, and 15th of the month, I shall make a purification by washing. Then one god should be slaughtered, and the gods can be purified by immersion. Nintu shall mix the clay with his flesh and blood. Then a god and a man will be mixed together in clay. Let us hear the drumbeat forever after. Let a ghost come into existence from the god's flesh. Let her proclaim it as her living sign, and let the ghost exist so as not to forget the slain god. They answered yes in the assembly. The great Anunnaki who assigned the fates, the Adamu, will be gifted to earth. Adam will do the work of the gods. Let them find the gold. Let the watchers keep an eye on them. On the 1st, 7th, and 15th of the month, he made a purification by washing. Geshtu-e, a god who had intelligence, they laughed in their assembly. Nintu mixed clay with his flesh and blood. They heard the drumbeat forever after. Adam came into existence from the god's flesh, and she proclaimed it as his living sign. The ghost existed so as not to forget the slain god. After she had mixed that clay, she called up the Anunnaki, the great gods. The Igigi, the great gods, spat spittle upon the clay. Mami made her voice heard, and spoke to the great gods. I have carried it out perfectly, the work that you ordered of me. You have slaughtered a god together with his intelligence. I have relieved you of your hard work. I have imposed your load on man. You have bestowed noise on man. You have bestowed noise on humankind. I have undone the fetter and granted freedom. They listened to their speech of hers, and were freed from anxiety, and kissed her feet. We used to call you Mami, but now your name shall be Mistress of all gods. Far-sighted Enki and wise Mami went into the room of fate. The womb goddesses were assembled. He trod the clay in her presence. She kept reciting an incantation, for Enki, staying in her presence, made her recite it. When she had finished her incantation, she pinched off 14 pieces of clay, and set 7 pieces on the right, 7 on the left. Between them, she put down a mud brick. She made use of a reed, opened it to cut the umbilical cord, called up the wise and knowledgeable womb goddesses, 7 and 7. 7 created males, 7 created females. For the womb goddess is the creator of fate. He, them 2 by 2, them 2 by 2 in her presence. Mami made these rules for people. In the house of a woman who is giving birth, the mud brick shall be put down for 7 days. Bele Ili, wise Mami, shall be honored. The midwife shall rejoice in the house of the woman who gives birth. And when the woman gives birth to the baby, the mother of the baby shall sever herself. A man to a girl, her bosom. A beard can be seen on a young man's cheek. In gardens and waysides, a wife and her husband choose each other. The womb goddesses were assembled, and Nintu was present. They counted the months, called up the 10th month as the term of fates. When the 10th month came, she slipped in a staff and opened the womb. Her face was glad and joyful. She covered her head, performed the midwifery, put on her belt, said a blessing. She made a drawing in flour and put down a mud brick. I created it, my hands made it. He midwife shall rejoice in the house of the Kadistu priestess. Whenever a woman gives birth and the baby's mother severs herself, the mud brick shall be put down for 9 days. Nintu, the womb goddess, shall be honored. She shall call there Mami. She shall, the womb goddess, lay down the linen cloth. When the bed is laid out in their house, a wife and her husband shall choose each other. Inanna shall rejoice in the wife-husband relationship in the father-in-law's house. Celebration shall last for 9 days, and they shall call Inanna Ishtar, Ishara. On the 15th day, the fixed time of fate, she shall call. A man, clean the home, the son to his father. They sat, and he was carrying, he saw, Enlil. They took hold of, made new picks and spades, made big canals, to feed people and sustain the gods. 600 years less than 600 passed, and the country was as noisy as a bellowing bull. The god grew restless at their racket. Enlil had to listen to their noise. Every day he wanted to wipe them out. He addressed the great gods. The noise of humanity has become too much. I am losing sleep over their racket. Give the order that Surupu disease shall break out. Now there was one Atrahasis, whose ear was open to his god Enki. He would speak with his god, and his god would speak with him. Atrahasis made his voice heard, and speaking to his lord, "How long will the gods make us suffer? Will they make us suffer illness forever?" Enki made his voice heard, and spoke to his servant, "Call the elders, the senior men. Start an uprising in your own house. Let the heralds proclaim. Let them make a loud noise in the land. Do not revere your gods. Do not pray to your goddesses, but search out the door of Namtara. Bring a baked loaf into his presence. May he be shamed by the presence, and wipe away his hand." Atrahasis took the order, gathered the elders to his door. Atrahasis made his voice heard, and spoke to the elders, "I have called the elders, the senior men. Start an uprising in your own house. Let the heralds proclaim. Let them make a loud noise in the land. Do not revere your gods. Do not pray to your goddesses, but search out the door of Namtara. Bring a baked loaf into his presence. May the flour offerings reach him. May he be shamed by the presence, and wipe away his hand." The elders listened to his speech. They built a temple for Namtara in the city. Heralds proclaimed. They made a loud noise in the land. They did not revere their god. They did not pray to their goddess, but search out the door of Namtara, brought a baked loaf into his presence. The flour offerings reached him, and he was shamed by the presence, and wiped away his hand. The Sarupu disease left them. The gods went back to their regular offerings. At this point, the Atrahasis epic from the Moorhen collection of the Museum Archive in Liechtenstein, which has 2 copies, one Akkadian and one Babylonian version, gives us a real gem of an insight. The story continues on the reverse of the Akkadian version. Sitchin has always campaigned to get this released by the Rothschilds museum owners. Ryan Moorhen, in his seminal work, finally achieved this in 2014. Enki makes a speech. "Dear Anunnaki Council of 12, welcome to our debate. Today, Enlil and I stand divided, discussing the fate of humankind. I, Enki, the ever-curious god, plead for the freedom and prosperity of these mortals, while Enlil vehemently disagrees." Enlil, laughing in the face of Enki, says, "You always were the one with your head in the clouds, full of fanciful notions. Humankind is nothing more than a troublesome creation. They have brought chaos and suffering to the world. It is time to rid ourselves of them. But Enlil, they possess great potential. Have you yet to see the wonders they have accomplished? They harness the power of the elements, cultivate the land, and create art that stirs the soul. They are capable of profound love and compassion." Enlil retorts, "Love and compassion, you say? Those are fleeting emotions, Enki. Humanity is fickle and corruptible. They wage wars, exploit nature, and revel in their own self-destruction. They are not worthy of our compassion." Enki pleads further, "Is it not our duty as gods to guide them towards a better path? If we abandon them, who will protect them from their own follies? Their potential outweighs their flaws. They deserve a chance to evolve and learn from their mistakes." Enlil laughs mockingly. "Evolve, learn. Enki, my dear brother, I don't want to abandon them. I want to wipe out humanity. And there is nothing you can do. You underestimate their mortality. Mortals are bound by their fragile existence, forever condemned to ignorance. Their progress is temporary, as all mortals meet their demise." Enki tries once more in earnest. Mortality is what gives them their fervor. The fleeting nature of life ignites their desire to create, explore, and connect. It is what makes their existence meaningful. As eternal beings, we may never truly understand that depth of experience. Enlil speaks even more harshly now. "Adamu, your protege, is but a mere mortal, a human. You have become too attached, Enki. You see through mortal eyes. I, on the other hand, see the bigger picture. Humanity will continue multiplying and destroying until they consume everything in their path." Enki diplomatically speaks to the Council of 12. And what if we offer them guidance, enlighten them? Imagine a world where mortals and gods coexist in harmony, where their potential is nurtured. By depriving them, we deprive ourselves of the wonders they can achieve. Enlil scoffs. "Harmony is an illusion, Enki. Humanity's thirst for power and conquest will always override any semblance of peace. They are a constant threat to balance and order. Elimination is the only solution." Enki looks his counterpart in the eyes. "I implore you, Enlil, to reconsider. As gods, we have the power to shape their destiny. Let us be compassionate and guide them towards a future where they can transcend their limitations. Let us be a part of their growth and evolution." Enlil smirks, compassion for mortals. Enki, you have always been the sentimental one. But remember this, no matter how much we invest in them, no matter how high they reach, in the end they are mere mortals, and all mortals die.